Today, we're going to talk about Apple's changes to a lot of different systems, particularly Apple Maps. They're rolling out a lot of things to help small businesses. So they're trying to compete with Google Maps more now that I think this is a reaction to the DOJ wanting to break up Google. And they see an opportunity because Google really isn't putting that much into Google business profiles and maps to help small businesses. But before I get into that, something that I was reminded of yesterday while helping someone with their Google business profile was that Google can make changes to your GBP at random. They have loosed their eye on profiles for some time and will add services to your profile without even asking you. Sometimes they'll even throw a price on it, which may or may not jive with your prices. So we went through and we deleted a whole bunch of stuff from this particular P yesterday, but it's part of what I'm calling GBP hygiene. So if you have a map listing on Google, it really pays to schedule once a month. Sometime it may take 5 minutes, it may take 2 seconds, but just to go in and check to make sure everything is kosher on your GBP, because either Google can change services, they can change products, and who knows what else they'll decide that they can change in the future. But you've also got the people that can change things just as a user. So really pays to practice GBP hygiene. Back to Apple. Near Media, the guys from Near Media have really talked about Apple news quite a bit in the last couple of weeks, probably in concert with the release of all the new toys from Apple. I finally placed my order for a new MacBook Pro last week. Really excited to get that because I think I'm going to blow up my poor little mini with an M1 chip one of these days, just pushing it too hard. Way too many tabs open all the time. First of all, Apple has what they call Apple Business Connect, and it's basically Google business profiles just on Apple. They've really been upping the game of Business Connect recently and making more enhancements to Apple Maps, especially for small businesses and service providers, which Google has also historically given very little love to. You really don't want to be a service provider on Google Maps. So we'll talk about some of these changes, their implications for businesses and consumers, and how they position Apple in the landscape against Google. And just to mention here, Facebook is now also launching a local listing service. So we'll be talking about that in the future. That's really pretty new, and they've done it pretty on the QT. So they've been very quiet about it. So I was surprised to find out that it's estimated that 110 million people are using Apple Maps to navigate the US. That's a lot. Most of us SEOs always think of local as being Google. It's not completely Google, and it appears that Apple is really realizing the opportunity. This estimate comes from Andrew Shotland at the Local SEO Guide, and this link, the post at this link, he goes through how he made that estimate just from the number of iPhones that are in service in the US and a few other numbers. So Apple is expanding Business Connect. Previously, it was limited to brick and mortar businesses. So even at-home businesses were a little bit, but now Apple has opened it up to a wider range of businesses, including e-commerce and service area businesses. So if you don't want to show your address, this is for you. So any verified business can create a presence on Apple's platform. And this is always one of the things that I do when I make sure that your citations are consistent across the web, because that's something that Google looks at. Apple looks at it too, but you definitely want to have the right information on Apple's platform. And that helps you to showcase your brand across various Apple applications, including Apple Maps, Wallet, and Mail. Mail is now in the mix because of generative AI. On my phone, since Apple's update 18.1, it's showing me a AI summary of all the emails I've gotten in the last day, and it prioritizes them. So generative AI has come to Apple Mail, and that fits into this whole ecosystem. So the verification process for Apple Business Connect is similar to what on GBP. They do that because they only want legitimate businesses, and people are always trying to game the system. It also helps to build trust within the ecosystem for Apple. Customers are more confident knowing that the businesses that they interact with on Apple Maps are validated. So they brought out new enhanced features for non-brick and mortar businesses. They say that non-brick and mortar businesses won't appear directly on Apple Maps. Makes sense, you don't have an address, but they will benefit from other new features in the applications. For instance, Apple Mail will now display trusted brand logos, making it easier for consumers to identify legitimate businesses. Yelp charges you $1 a day just to display your logo. So this is going to cut into Yelp a bit, I think. And Apple Pay will also show branded information instead of generic payment details. So it's a place for you to build brand recognition and trust. The guys at Near Media think this is a strategic move to create a more cohesive and trustworthy experience. And it's also developing direct relationships with various businesses. Apple's positioning itself as a reliable platform for consumers, which is especially important in today's landscape where trust is paramount and really hard to police. So as I talked about before, Apple Maps is seeing increased usage. The data I mentioned above shows that it's gaining traction among users. Year-over-year comparison shows that a significant percentage of driving directions, calls, website clicks are coming from Apple Maps. They gave an anecdote from a jewelry store in Buffalo that reported about 33% of their driving directions came from Apple Maps. So that trend highlights the importance of optimizing for Apple Maps as it's becoming a critical platform, right up there with Google Maps. They are giving them a run for their money. So with AI integration, Apple's exploring AI integration into its services. Like I said, with Mail, Siri has gotten, I'm not going to say better because it really hasn't gotten better. It's a little bit more user-friendly and it glows and the screen bounces, but other than that, it's not much more helpful yet. They are making strides with providing more relevant and contextual information. I'm not going to say Siri understands context better. They did give an example, but I haven't really experienced it yet. I'm hoping, always hoping. So as Apple continues to develop these capabilities, it potentially will disrupt how people search by offering a more integrated and user-friendly approach. Remains to be seen how Google responds, but anybody who gives Google a run for its money has my vote. Back to the brand and recognition and trust, they are really trying to build trust within their ecosystem and a more transparent environment for consumers. It's particularly important, according to the guys at Near Media, because it's in contrast to Google, where consumers often struggle to identify legitimate businesses because of this prevalence of spam and fraudulent listings. I know that there are lawyers and financial planners from out of state that will use a shared office to set up a local business profile in order to funnel local traffic from Albuquerque to Phoenix. That's one that I saw firsthand. We'll see if Apple is more successful in that realm. So challenges for small businesses. The guys at Near Media acknowledge that there are still a lot of challenges for small businesses, especially navigating these new features. Many don't have the expertise or the resources to optimize their presence. And frankly, most people don't want to. Having to do this across multiple platforms is quite frankly a pain in the ass. It takes time or it takes money, and everybody's short on both. So it's essential that Apple provide clear guidance to help businesses like ours succeed. They think, and I agree, that Apple should consider offering resources, tutorials, even partnerships with local agencies to assist small businesses in maximizing their visibility and engagement on and across their Apple's platforms. So for future marketing opportunities, as Apple continues to expand these services, despite all the warts, this is a fresh opportunity for most small businesses and solopreneurs for new opportunities in marketing. Apple potentially can monetize these platforms through advertising. I hope they don't, but the way things are going, everybody does eventually. Once again, we are the product if we're not paying for it. Advertising integration, hopefully they'll do it better than Google. Apple could allow businesses to advertise within Google Maps or other applications to enhance your visibility. Small businesses are likely going to get shut out just like they are on Google most of the time because Google's ads are too complex and they're not cheap. Despite all of Google's, we're efficient and AI gets you the biggest bang for your buck. Most people waste a lot of money figuring the system out. So hopefully all of this will help small businesses increase their visibility online, especially on maps, and give us all an alternative to Google. Something I've used in the past is tap to pay and payment processing. I don't use Apple for payment processing, but I do use Square and I use Stripe. And with both of them, historically, we've had to use little pucks that you fit the credit card into, or you tap a tap enabled, and I can never remember the acronym, tap enabled, but I always would leave that at home where I couldn't find it when I go to a market and I managed to sell a t-shirt or a gift certificate. But last year, I was actually able to use tap to pay. So people could just tap on my phone and the payment would go through in one of those applications. Very handy because you don't have this extra piece of equipment that you have to make sure that you know where it is and the battery's charged.
And it's synced. That
Yes.
was my biggest problem, getting it
Yes.
synced.
I never had that much trouble with sync, but yes, you had to, if you hadn't synced it before the person came up and said, I want to give you money, you fumble around with it. But yeah, needs to tell more people about this feature. Hopefully this, whatever this is, YouTube video, reel, whatever I turn this into, will be one of those things where people can learn that this is available. So just education and letting people know that this is available and making it easy to use. So Apple just needs to do more to ensure widespread adoption and use. So that's all I've got for what the folks at Near Media have been talking about with Apple Business Connect. I'm pretty positive about Apple jumping in more. I've been using Apple since the 2E, so I'm definitely an Apple girl, and any competition in the space is totally welcome in my view. So I hope that helps everybody who's on the call and who watches later.